Like a sneaky jalapeno in your burrito. That unexpected heat is shocking, but you can't live without it. Jeff and Jeremy in the morning. Oh!
Good morning and welcome in. I guess scientists have developed a new wearable sensor that might be able to help drinkers better manage their alcohol consumption. If you're one of these people that just get yourself into a little bit of trouble because you drink a little too much.
Is this an ongoing blood alcohol monitor?
Well, you see all these advertisements on TV now for people with diabetes to measure their blood sugar. Why couldn't they give you something that you stick on your arm that would measure your blood alcohol as you're drinking?
This is scary because you know what's going to happen is they're going to mandate, because I mean I'm sure this is a huge medical contract, right? The government could prove that it saves lives. They'll mandate everybody has to wear a blood alcohol monitor so they can look at their blood alcohol monitor.
The bars will be checking your IDs and your blood alcohol monitor. Yeah.
We're just robots with chips in us and all kinds of stuff, vaccine to the max. I mean, you gotta have to have that thing calibrated. In order for it to make money, though, Jeremy, you gotta get it calibrated every month. You gotta go in and get it calibrated by your medical professional. Then you can make money on that.
I guess how it works is it extracts through the skin. So if that's the case, then that means the alcohol has to be in your system, right? You have to digest it. Means it has to go through your stomach, your intestines, I would think your liver, your kidneys. I don't know, before it actually gets to the point where you're excreting alcohol through your skin. It's a THC sensor is what they're calling it. A transdermal alcohol content sensor.
I'm not a scientist, so all that just went right over my head, what you said. But I will say this. I don't know if I trust the science anymore.
Well, you know how the body works, right? You eat something and you digest it, and then it gets into your bloodstream.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they're saying. They're just calling it a big fancy word. Transdermal alcohol content sensor. It's a tack. Mm-hmm. And you just stick it to your body. And so once the alcohol...
they already make people that have like multiple drunk driving offenses put that thing on their ignition. And they have to blow. It has to come in at a certain number before they could start up the car. This is just the next level of that, right? I mean, I can see courts appointing this. I really can. Like, okay, you're going to have to wear a monitor.
Well, they say within minutes it'll tell you your blood alcohol. That's interesting. So you wouldn't have to metabolize the alcohol before it went in. You wear it on your ankle, by the way.
Do you remember when JW came in and plowed us full of alcohol for St. Patrick's Day?
Yes.
And do you remember how for the first 2.5 hours...
Never had a cop tell me to just, hey, pound it.
For the first 2.5 hours, we were perfectly fine. And it wasn't until 2.5 hours in that we hit the wall. Yeah. Or we started to hit the wall. And at like 3.5 hours, we'd really...
It went downhill really
hit
fast.
The wall.
It was like a roller coaster out of control.
It takes time. So if you have this thing on and you're checking your blood alcohol content for the first couple hours, it might not register at all that high. But then later on, as it starts to catch up, then that's what it's giving you. So if it gets to a point where it's high, then okay, I need to back off on my drinks. Is this good for the alcohol business or bad for the alcohol business? Having too much knowledge.
It could be good and bad. I mean, obviously, you on one side of it, you think, well, it could be bad because, people aren't going to drink as much. But it could also be good because it could get more people to go out and drink because then they could kind of know where their limits are. I don't
Control
think
freaks.
You've ever had this issue, but I remember in college we would go out to a bar and you could, metabolize alcohol way better than I could. Like we were
yes.
We were side by side drinking big beers, and I'm like, how is it? And I'm feeling wasted. So then I would go get water. And I still do this to that day. As soon as I start to feel like I'm a little too buzzed, then I'll just go drink 2 glasses of water, and it'll knock me back a couple of drinks, and then I'll be good to have another beer or a cocktail or whatever.
I metabolize like crazy. I don't know what it is. I'm fine. I'm good. I'm A-okay when it comes to alcohol.
Yeah, if you've ever found yourself in a situation like where you're like, wow, I've had a lot to drink, I guess this would help kind of track it. And who knows? There's probably an app on your phone, and it would just, Bluetooth to it or whatever, and you would be able to see where your blood alcohol content is. I'm a little worried that people would use this as a way to drink and drive and say, well, look at that. It's dropping. I bet you in a half hour I can drive home and I'll be legal. And then who knows how accurate that is compared to a blood
Yes,
alcohol. That could get
exactly.
you in trouble. So yeah,
exactly.
Be smart about it. Interesting. So
science scares me, man.
look for the TAC sensor from Yale University School of Medicine. It'll be in a bar near you, I'm sure, very, very soon.
Spending 4 hours in a box together every day can make you say crazy things.
Don't go crazy.
Jeff and Jeremy in the morning.
So, Jeff, we've been talking about this for the last, at least year and a half, maybe 2 years, that we just had the feeling that a lot of people were moving to the Central Coast from Los Angeles, from San Francisco. Those two areas in particular, they're moving out of big cities because they realize now they can work remotely, pun intended. And they're coming to San Luis Obispo. They're bringing all that big money from Los Angeles and San Francisco. They're selling their homes for millions of dollars, and they're coming here and they're buying up the market. A new study just came out, 15.5% increase in the past 2 years. The San Luis Obispo housing market has seen that more people are applying for home loans here up by 15.5% than they have. That is not the case everywhere else in the country. There are other areas that are growing, but obviously this is a very desirable place to live. And so we got our buddy Justin Stearns on from Assist Home Loans. He's at assisthomeloans.com. This is what you do, Justin. So, how much busier have you been over the past year in some change?
Yeah, 2021 was probably our busiest year ever, actually, in terms of volume. And so that was driven by, still a low rate environment, lots of refinance activity still happening, but a very, very strong purchase market. Of course, the Central Coast is a unique place with limited places to live, limited building going on. There's a little more of it going on now, but it's a low inventory market environment. And you've got a lot of demand, like you said, coming from big, big cities into our beautiful area. And so purchase money market was strong. So it was a really strong year in 2021. 2022, little bit of a change in tune here that's happening.
So the first quarter of the year or so, what do you see in this change in tune?
Well, you've seen the fastest rise in interest rates really in history, with the Fed trying to curb inflation and some of the different other economic challenges that are going on. I know the average family is feeling the price of gas and groceries and pretty much everything out there increasing. And so what the Fed does to fight inflation is they have basically a couple different levers. One is how much liquidity they're putting into the economy, but the main lever is the interest rate environment. And so to combat inflation, they're rising rates, and that's rates across the board called the federal funds rate. It trickles into every aspect of the economy, but mortgage rates in particular have risen at a faster rate than really since the 1980s, when we saw really peaks of interest rates, when you saw double-digit interest rates. So that being said, guys, yeah, I mean, I
was just going to ask, do you see this rush towards people trying to get the lowest rate that you could possibly get because, the inflation doesn't seem like it's slowing down. Those rates are probably going to still be going up. I mean, I would think that you would remain to be busy right now.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, I mean, that's a great point. Rates are still going up. Yes, we're in a trending upward environment, but rates are still really good. I mean, historically, the average 30-year fixed rate right now with the MBA, Mortgage Bankers Association nationwide, is 5.375% with 0 points. And so you're still talking about historically a fantastic interest rate. And when you've got inflation that's pushing 8 to 9%, the real interest rate is actually running negative. And so money is relatively cheap right now, even though that doesn't impact a person's wallet.
That sounds crazy to me, Justin, because I mean, in January I got pre-approved for a loan at 3%. And I was reading a study that it's going to be an extra $565 a month on top of your mortgage, paying the interest rate right now. I think that was at 5.6%. They didn't have all the fancy stuff you said, but it's very close. Yep. And I got to imagine with the housing rate, I mean, the housing markets, these numbers are higher than they've ever been. Like you said, the interest rates are crazy, and they're going to keep going up. Eventually, don't you see this bubble bursting? Don't you see it coming to a point where people, because I could see it here where I live, that the people are already dropping their houses $50,000, $60,000, $75,000 because they weren't selling in a week when they went on the market. They're now sitting there for a month, 2 months, and people are like, wow, okay, yeah, we thought we could get an extra $50,000, $75,000, and we're starting to see it come down now. It's still way overpriced for the area that I live in, but you see that starting to happen.
Yeah, I see a little bit of leveling. I don't really see a lot of price dropping right now, maybe a little bit in the luxury market. But there's still such a high demand for our area and such a low inventory that the housing market is running strong. And with rates still relatively low on a historical basis, I don't see a lot of that changing this year. I think that you're going to see some leveling, and if the economy enters recession, potentially a reversal in home prices, but I wouldn't bank on prices dropping this year.
No,
I think
of course
more
not.
of a leveling play out.
But if somebody is looking to buy in the next year or two, do you see it dropping next year? Do you see it dropping in 23, 24? Or do you have any idea?
It's always a possibility, but I'll give you, I don't have a crystal ball, but even in the 2008 mortgage crisis and the crash, our area was protected, like very well protected. We're just in a high desirable area with a very low inventory. And so, real estate in the Central Coast is a fantastic investment when you put it against other areas, big cities where you have a downturn that affects prices in a much higher way. Now we're not immune. Don't take it that way. But
sure.
The Central Coast is just a fantastic place to be. People want to be here, and we're going to definitely see leveling off. We may even see a reversal in 2023, but I don't think it's going to be anything drastic because of the demand that exists.
Not like other places that you probably would think there would be. We're with Justin Stearns. He's Assist Home Loans. That's who he's with. And it's interesting because you mentioned 2008. 2008, we didn't have this thing that came about where people realized they could work remotely. And you talked about inventory here on the Central Coast. It seems I was listening to something the other day that said that as far as California goes, we were one of 3 counties in the whole state that actually had a gain in population. There's 58 counties. 58 counties in the state. We're one of 3. Yeah. Obviously, people are coming here, and I actually ran into, full disclosure, by the way, Justin helped me out with our home purchase, and I ran into our realtor the other day at a birthday party, and she said that there's houses that are being listed in San Luis Obispo proper for like 1.2, and they're getting offers from out of towners coming in at 1.6. They haven't even walked through the house before, so it's still in high demand.
It is. And the demand is outpacing every other metric.
Yeah, it's crazy because these aren't mansions. I mean, this was a house in the Arbors. This was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2,000 square foot house in the Arbors.
And it's frustrating for people that are renting and want to buy. Because, I think there's a lot of people in that situation that's like, wow, I wish I would have bought, a couple of years ago. And then I would feel a little bit more secure 5 years ago or 6 years ago. And, now if you're sitting here and you're like, wow, I think I'll just try to wait it out a couple more years. Otherwise, I'm going to get locked into this rate that is really high. And you look at the country and the economy and the recession on the loom and inflation, and eventually something has to give. And I got to imagine at some point, but you're the expert, that these interest rates will start to come back down when, they're not selling as many houses. But this is a very special area. I get it.
It is special, yeah. But you're right. Cyclical markets are healthy in the long run. We need a change. We can't run at lowest interest rates in history forever, and we can't run a hot economy forever. It just doesn't work that way. And so in a way, I know it's hard to understand on a short-term basis, but the rise in interest rates is good to kind of calm the fire down a little bit and bring some normalization, because the average person, the fact of the matter is the average person's getting squeezed out a little bit with the rise in rates because it's becoming unaffordable, and COVID and the remote work and the high demand has driven big money from cities into our area. And so it is becoming a more and more less affordable situation for the average person. It's unfortunate, but if you are a homeowner in this area, it's a fantastic investment. And if you can get in, it is a fantastic investment. And remember, guys, real estate is a long run deal. It's good for you over time because of the tax advantages, because of the pay down of the debt that you take on to buy it, and because of the appreciation over time. And so I'm still an advocate of home ownership. I think it's good for the average person over time. And I think that cyclical markets are good for everyone overall over time.
We're talking to our buddy Justin Stearns with Assist Home Loans, assisthomeloans.com. New report came out that said San Luis Obispo County metro area has experienced a 15.5% increase in mortgage loan applications. People from outside the area, Los Angeles, San Francisco, the Bay Area, Orange County, Southern and Central California above us, are now moving to the area where it's cheaper to live, and they're bringing all that big dollar from that big city, and they're buying up stuff, and it's leaving the rest of us going, hey, I can't afford a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, $1 million house, but these people can afford to pay twice what it's worth for on the market, and that's what we were talking about.
I don't know how it was for you guys, but I remember my parents bought their first house, I think in 1979, which was a horrible time for when you talk about the interest rates.
Now, my parents built their first house in 1979.
Yeah, I think the interest rate that they had was like a 12 or something like that. Could you?
I know my mom told me it was 8.5. We're
griping about
9.
5 right
now.
No,
it was 8.5.
5 is looking good. My parents would have killed for a 5%.
But they also built a 3,500 square foot house for $115,000 and had 5 acres of land right outside Mount Rainier National Park. It wasn't like it was in the city, but it was a beautiful area. It's crazy. So there's 6 one, half dozen the other.
And what was a gallon of gas back then is the question.
79 cents.
I remember.
Probably less.
It's so funny. It's so funny that you bring up that question, Justin, because I remember it's like one of my earliest memories, them freaking out because the 7-Eleven down the street from our house went up to $1.09. And they're like, oh, $1.09. I can't, because it was the Carter inflation recession, all that, that we were coming off of. And then so I ran it through a inflation calculator, because I remember that number 109. They're thinking, okay, that's expensive for gas, because my parents were freaking out about it. I was like 5, and I ran it through an inflation calculator, and I did this a couple months ago, so it's probably even more so now. But it equated to about $3.60, I think, at the time. And for a gallon of gas, now we're spending $6.
Over
no
6.
problem.
Over 6.
Yeah.
Crazy
it's crazy.
Okay, so we know that a lot of people are moving here, and what's the inventory situation like? Is there enough inventory for all these people to move here and bring all their big money? And it's like, the house went on the market for 1.2, but they're people are offering 1.8, 1.6, whatever. You have to have a lot to bring in to play in the game.
Yeah, I don't have the exact statistics on inventory with me right now, but I can tell you this, that inventory is the primary driver. The demand is high, the inventory is low. We're starting to see a little more inventory come onto the market as rates creep, but really that's the issue. Is there's just a limited amount of housing here, and with the high demand, it just drives prices up regardless of other economic conditions. So we need that normalization, and the first step towards normalization is that increase to the interest rate to kind of calm the fire down a little bit. It's running so hot right now, that it's just not sustainable. So look for leveling of prices, look for some stability, and long run real estate's still a good move. I will say this, guys, from a payment perspective, because that's really what hits the average person hard, right? You got to fill up your tank. It's $100. Rates go up, your mortgage payment increases. So how are some of the ways we're able to combat that in the mortgage business is the adjustable rate mortgage, for example, which has a really bad reputation because of the '08 crisis and the pay option arm and negative amortizing loans, those are a thing of the past. The new adjustable rate mortgages, they have some built-in protections. Contact Assist Home Loans, contact your favorite mortgage person, ask them about it. Sometimes it's a way to get a better payment that's more sustainable, and it's still fixed for a 5, 7, or 10-year period. And it has some protections built in on what happens after that based on market conditions. So it's not the risky, bad player that everybody thinks from the '08 crisis. But it's something to look into if you need some reprieve in terms of your monthly payment. Because I think people do out there. They need something to help. So that's one option to look into.
I'll tell you this, working with Justin for 2 home purchases, the guy's a magic man because, listen, we don't have the best credit. And it's not something I like to brag about, but he was able to figure out a way for us. And he's super knowledgeable it's like working with a computer. I mean, the guy is super knowledgeable when it comes to working out and figuring out a way for you to qualify for a house. And we thank you for joining us this morning, Justin.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, guys.
All right, there goes
Love your
Justin
show,
Stearns. Yeah, thank you very much. All
thanks.
right, take care,
Appreciate
buddy. That is assisthomeloans.com if you want to reach out to him. It'd be really interesting, Jeff, to see a study of how many people moving into the area, and that's what we're talking about here, this 15.5% increase in applications for mortgages, and how many people are leaving the area because they're trying to capitalize on selling their house at the highest, moving somewhere where it's cheaper, maybe even renting until the market comes down and then rebuying again. It's all a gamble, but gambling's fun.
In my neighborhood in the last 3 weeks alone, I've seen 3 different instances of that taking place. I mean, it's like you could tell when your neighbors are going to try and sell their home because they spruce it up. And then also there are people that have a complete fire sale. Yeah. Like they just put everything out on the curb, have a huge garage sale, put a free sign afterwards. And then they're in a moving truck with the stuff they're keeping and leaving Dodge.
We don't need money for this stuff. We just made $400,000 on our house that we bought 20 years ago.
2 days later, there's a for sale sign in the yard, and there's no cars and nothing inside the house. It's crazy. Insane how this is working out.
Pretty crazy area to live in. Anyways, once again, you want to find out more about mortgage loans. If you want to get into the game, assisthomeloans.com. Give our buddy Justin a call. We'll be right back.
Jeff and Jeremy in the morning on 93.3 KZOZ.
So the other day, the pilot that landed the plane when the pilot passed out. I just said that the wrong way. The other day when the passenger landed the plane, when the pilot passed out, it was a Cessna. Didn't this happen in Florida, right, Jeff? It's like, somewhere in there.
They were coming back from the Bahamas. They went over the Bahamas in I want to say a little Cessna, but then I saw a picture of the guy that actually ended up ultimately landing the plane. He was not the pilot. He was the passenger. And he was back in the back of the plane with his feet on another seat that was leather. So it was like a passenger-ish type Cessna. It was not a super small Cessna.
Did they say it was a Cessna?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
They did say it was a Cessna.
I saw him standing in front of a plane that looked like it had twin engines on it, but maybe that was just in the background when they happened to take the photo.
It was in a hangar that they did. They did an interview, I guess, with him, and in the interview, it was in a made-for-TV hangar, kind of like out here at ACI Jet. Which, by the way, next time you come to town, just walk over to ACI Jet and walk in there and look at that place. It looks like a museum. Dude, the place is incredible.
Well, I mean, I remember always seeing it driving in, like it, lit up and everything. And
oh my gosh, fancy. It's like you feel like you're walking into a movie set at that place.
It looks fancier than the Ronald Reagan Museum, which has an entire what do you call that? Where they store the airplanes. Hangar, yeah. It's got his 727 that was his presidential jet that, Air Force One is in there, plus some helicopters. This thing looks way, way sicker. Darren Harrison is the dude's name, and he said that he had thought about this moment in the past. Like when you fly, have you ever thought you might have to jump up there and land the plane because the pilot strokes out or something? Like that's kind of weird, but he apparently has considered this exact situation in the past.
My nightmare's always been when I go on flights like this. What happens if something health-wise happens to the pilot? What's going to happen?
You've thought about that before.
Oh, I've thought about it many a times.
It's so strange. What I thought was really interesting, though, is when he talked about...
If I'm a pilot, I'm not accepting him to fly on my plane because...
he's bad luck. This is the actual...
Wait, you're the guy that saved my life, ultimately? No. That could save my life, ultimately? No, I don't want to pass out in the first place.
Well, I mean, but seriously, I mean, he was able to do it, so maybe I would feel better with him there than somebody else.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Here's the actual moment that he kind of goes through when the pilot passed out.
He kind of did a move like this and said, guys, I got to tell you, I don't feel good. And I said, what's wrong? And he said, I got a headache and I'm fuzzy and I just don't feel right. And I said, what do we need to do? And at that point, he didn't respond at all. He was already done.
There's something about his voice. He sounds like a manly man, like he could do anything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's a badass.
Yeah, he definitely sounds like a badass. Then, of course, he landed the plane. He talks about that whole thing.
And by the time I had moved forward to the front of the airplane, I realized that we had now gone into a dive at a very fast rate. I knew if I didn't react that we would die. And so I reached over his body because he's at this point unresponsive, and I grabbed the controls of the airplane and slowly started to pull back on the stick and turn.
How did you know how to do that?
Just
because we've all seen
sense, I
Top
guess,
Gun,
being on
bitch.
airplanes.
Come on, we all have seen. We don't. Everybody knows to pull the plane up. You pull back. Everybody knows that.
I would have pulled it back quickly, though, and apparently that's not what you do, according to this guy. This guy said that he went up there and he slowly pulled it because if you pull it back quickly, it will rip the wings off the plane. He had the wherewithal to know that much about it. So that's a bit strange. Like, I feel like he's got flight experience, or he's just very
maybe
observant.
he's flown a bunch and he's talked to pilots, and you know, I mean, I know that whenever I ride with somebody in the car, we end up talking the whole time. So I don't know, but yeah, he did the right thing, and it's amazing.
Let me ask you a question here. If you get fuzzy and pass out, pull back easy on this. Is that the thing on that? I mean, is that what I'm supposed to do?
So,
it's just strange.
if you're ever in this situation and you nosedive, don't yank it. Just grab it and pull it back, and eventually that nose will come up. And then you got to get this guy, like, dead weight of a human man. I mean, of a male. I mean, that can't be easy either.
Yeah,
getting him out of that seat.
He reached over him to do that part. He didn't even bother moving him. He just kind of like got back behind him and then grabbed the stick, he said, and pulled back slowly, so then the plane would correct itself and kind of got it leveled. And it's a fascinating interview, actually.
Whenever you see an airplane, a jet or an airplane, you always see there's two controls, right? So it's not like a car has two steering wheels, but they have two controls, and you can be in the passenger seat, couldn't you? And then still can fly the airplane? I mean,
I guess. I mean, yeah, why not? It's not a steering wheel, and you don't have like a gas and a brake like you do in a car.
This next part of the interview drives me nuts. People are giving this guy cancel culture is already kicking in because he didn't call his wife. Like, seriously, I'm trying to save my life at the airplane and not die. I don't have time to call my wife because I'm on with air traffic control, trying to figure this out.
What if you would have crashed and died and you didn't get a chance to tell your wife you loved her? You could have at least called her. You could have reached out to her. You had time. In my mind, I knew I wasn't going to die. And the thought never crossed my mind to call and tell my wife
Badass. Yeah, plus you told your wife goodbye when you left, right? I mean, I always do. Last thing we say to each other is, I love you. That's pretty common, isn't it, for when you're married? So, dude, this guy, he's no Sullenberger, but he's up there. I'm telling you.
I don't know. I think he might be a little bit more impressive than Sullenberger, but I don't know, because I feel as if, though, he might not have experience flying a plane at all, but he was very observant of of pilots in order to pull off what he did pull off, and was very smart at listening to what air traffic control told him to do.
Once again, we still don't know what happened to the pilot, if he's dead, alive.
Yeah, that's right.
If he had, low blood sugar, if he had a heart attack.
Like, so how come Savannah couldn't have said anything about that?
Yeah, nice job, Savannah.
Oh, by the way, what happened to the pilot? Oh, he's no longer with us.
Subscribe to the Jeff and Jeremy podcast now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, and YouTube. It's your Central Coast commute-friendly podcast.